The amendment passed last night by unanimous consent. In other words, there was no opposition, and I believe it is the only amendment in what is now the defense appropriation measures, which the House of Representatives will be voting on. What it says is, as you know, the president invoked the War Powers Resolution, which has in it certain conditions. So he has, for a period of time, the ability to do as he has done. The resolution does not in any way prevent him from sending troops, not troops or anyone in, to help an embassy situation or our citizens in Iraq. That has no impact, and what he's done up to now, by invoking it, he has the authority to do. However, what the resolution then requires is, and the amendment reaffirms, is that anything past that, the president must come to Congress in order to get further authorization. And this amendment says that he cannot use any funds, so no funds shall be used in a situation where the president has not complied with the War Powers Resolution.
Now, Congresswoman, you've been an opponent of the Iraq War for many years. Your concern as you see the latest developments of the past few weeks of what this might mean for United States involvement in Iraq?
You know, yes, you're correct. I've opposed the Iraq War since the 2002 situation, and I've also opposed the president's intervention into Syria when he said he was going to do the limited airstrikes there. The problem that I think that we all have is why, the question of why. Why are we doing this? We do know, and the fact that I believe the president has invoked the War Powers Resolution, then simply doing the AUMF, the Authorized Use of Military Force, which is specific for Iraq and Afghanistan, that says to me that he realizes that it is delinked from 9/11. So what we are doing now is that we are intervening into a sectarian civil war. And the question I believe that most of us have is why and how does that link to national interest? And what is our national security interest in this? And in addition to that, will this be construed as taking a side in one of the three sectarian-related groups that there is in Iraq? And will that then exasperate the situation? And how are then we getting out of it? But the real question that we've always had from the time we intervened the first time into Iraq and went in under the guise of, we knew that there were weapons of mass destruction, which then turned to be false, is what is the end game? What is it that we intend to achieve? What is it that we want? What is it, or how do we leave a situation like that? But I think more importantly, the American people want to know why. And this is where we are in Congress. That's what people are asking. Why this sectarian civil war? Why are we going in?
You're one of the few Buddhists in Congress. Your colleague, Senator Mazie Hirono, also a Buddhist from Hawaii, Hank Johnson of Georgia.
That's right.
Does that play into your feelings in any way?
You know, I don't believe that it necessarily plays into my feelings per se, but, you know, I've always being raised as a Buddhist, I've always felt that it's really a philosophical way of looking at what goes on in our lives and how do we place that balance. So in the sense that I'm always asking the questions of why and how does this affect the people, what are my constituents, and I guess in that sense, yes, it's really sensitizes me to the really major question of what is it? You know, we are talking about human lives, but I think that the bottom line in all of this, it isn't necessarily religious oriented. I think it really is a matter of just humanitarian concerns and people, and the question of what is it that we, as Americans, intend to tell the world as we step in the middle of a sectarian civil war that we know has been going on for a while. So what is it that triggers it this time?
Congresswoman, I wanted to ask you, some of your colleagues, I'm thinking specifically in the Senate, John McCain, have said that the mistake of the president was in removing so many troops from Iraq that he allowed this situation to develop that they predicted. What's your response to that?
I don't believe that that's a correct assessment. I think the problem was going into Iraq to begin with. It wasn't the removal of the troops, because the removal of the troops, remember, was a function of whether or not at that time Maliki was going to actually sign, and he made it very clear that the United States had to leave. And now we're beginning to hear stories about whether Maliki was really under the control or influenced heavily by the supreme leader of Iran. So we have all of these different players now in the region influencing how this is going to come out. I think to say that it was because we removed the troops, that's not the situation. Look at what happened. The ISIL or ISIS, whichever way you want to refer to the group that's coming in, Sunni-based. Question is where is the money coming from? Where is the training coming from? Because they seem to be, by all reports, a very well-trained, well-financed group. And as that moves in, and look at the Kurds and what they're doing. They're not really in this, but of course they have their territories as well. So I think to say it was taking the troops out, that's not it, and I don't think it was in the president's what he had a control over to take the troops out. That was a matter of what Iraq wanted, and they made it clear. We are to leave with no troops left behind.